Hello, Dharma Circle. Swati here, the Embodied Dharma Coach. Happy full moon, eclipse, and Pitra Paksh. And this class is all about the importance of this sacred time of year in the Vedic calendar and how to honor this really powerful time in the Vedic calendar, especially when it comes to your Dharma, your Dharmic path, your purpose, and of course your ancestral work. When it comes to really well-intentioned spiritual people, I'm always amazed that this is the one thing they're missing on their path. And I am on a mission to help people transform the way that they are doing their Dharmic work and to understand the importance of the ancestors on the Dharmic path. We cannot have Dharma without the ancestors. There is no Dharma without the ancestors. So just a reminder that with this full moon on the 17th, we had a penumbral lunar eclipse, and it also started a very powerful 2-week cycle in the Vedic calendar called Pitra Paksh. And this cycle is specifically for honoring the ancestors, honoring with gratitude, honoring their guidance and their support on our path. And we are here to give homage and our thanks to the ancestors. And I'll go more into that today, how to actually do that, how to honor your lineage and really get the benefit of this sacred time. This 2-week cycle of Pitra Pakshu always comes right before Navratri. And then we go into 9 days and nights honoring the divine feminine. And this is when the divine feminine awakens. And so it's no mistake that the ancestral support comes before this very powerful Dharmic cycle of Navratri. We need the ancestors to support us on the Dharmic path. And in this sacred gap, and this is a very Sandhi time, so Sandhi in Sanskrit means the in-between, and it's a gap. So there are gap seasons, there are gap times of days, different cycles are considered gaps or in-between times. And fall is one of those times, spring is one of those times. This is when spirit awakens. These gaps are very spiritual, very sacred. Just like when you have a planet in your Jyotish chart that is Sandhi, it's in between a sign. It's neither here nor there. It's considered to be very spiritual and very sacred. It's also a sensitivity point, considered challenging or even not well placed. But in my system and my way of working with Jyotish, we consider these sensitivity points very sacred and important spiritual gifts. And so when we are working with a Sandhi time of year or a Sandhi season like fall, we want to honor the sacredness, the spiritual nature of this time. And that's what Pitra Paksh and Navratri remind us, that spirit is awake. The veil between the material world and the spiritual world is very thin. And that means that we can access spirit very easily. Spirit is very close. The ancestral realms are very close. Easy for us to communicate with, connect with, touch. And so this 2-week period, and let's say 3-week, even a month as we move into Navratri, is the most important time of year for doing your ancestral work. But your ancestral work doesn't stop after Pitra Pakshu ends and after Navratri ends. If you are on a dharmic path, if your intention is to enliven and awaken your Dharma, to live a path of Dharma, and to live the purpose of your soul, you must have the ancestral support in order to do this. So just remember that this is your dharmic work. Your ancestral work is your dharmic work. And there is no Dharma without the ancestors. If you are not doing your ancestral work and you're not using your Jyotish chart to support you in your ancestral work, it's like you're eating one piece of pie rather than the whole pie. You don't have access to the whole pie. The wholeness is missing. So if you're still doubting, if you don't feel like you're truly thriving, if you don't understand your soul contract, if you're living in malnourishment for some reason, maybe that's financially or physically or in your relations, if you're not feeling fulfilled, successful, and if you don't feel content on your dharmic path, you are not living your wholeness. Dharma needs to be nourishing, abundant, fulfilling. My definition of Dharma is wholeness. And the reason that you're not feeling more fulfilled, it might surprise you, but it has to do with your ancestors and your ancestral work. You have all these tools, and I work with amazing spiritual people who are sensitive and they are healers, and they've been searching all their lives, gathering incredible tools and wisdom and resources, and they have the most amazing teachers. And yet it's always amazing to me that this one thing is missing for them in their dharmic work. I don't understand how this has gotten lost. But again, it's part of my mission to change this. We need to understand that there is no Dharma without the ancestors. If you're not doing your ancestral work, you're not fully living your wholeness and the dharmic wholeness that you're seeking. And so at this time of Pitra Paksh and moving into Navratri, you can start awakening this relationship with your ancestors. You can start feeding them, asking for their guidance and support. And if you're really devoted to your Dharma and your spiritual progress, this is the missing piece for you in your soul work. There is a contract, and most of us, the clients that I work with, we are contract workers. What this means is that your ancestors have hired you to restore Dharma to the lineage. When the lineage gets really imbalanced, when there is a lot of adharma, that which goes against Dharma in the ancestral body, then the ancestors will hire a contract worker to come into a body and restore the lineage Dharma, the balance, the wholeness in the lineage. You'll know you're a contract worker if you're the different one. If everyone in your family is going right, you're going left. And you often feel misunderstood or like you're working alone. You are the different one doing life in a very different way. Often the black sheep of the family, or you march to the beat of your own drum. And whether or not you feel supported by your family, your living family, it's important to understand that you have a different type of contract with the ancestors. And you won't be fully fulfilled until you understand what this contract is. This contract is with you and your ancestors, no one else. And so what I find is that people who are really unfulfilled, unsatisfied, they're not successful, they're not getting ahead in their life in a way that feels truly meaningful and important. If they're a contract worker, and they don't understand their contract, the path is so much harder. And as soon as you move into right relationship with the purpose, the contract that you have with your ancestors, the path becomes gentler, easier. You don't have to fight against the truth of what you're here to do. The resistance softens. The path becomes clearer, easier, gentler. And really understanding the contract that you have with your lineage is vital for this process. If you are a contract worker. And contract workers are the ones that really have this strong desire to heal themselves and their lineage. There's an understanding that the cycles and the problems, the challenges, the pain, the suffering in your lineage, it stops with you. And you're not going to be perpetuating these same problems, and you're not going to keep passing these same challenges and traumas and grief onto your children or the next generation. And so there's a really strong desire to change the patterns in the lineage. This is also a cycle breaker. So if you're a cycle breaker or a contract worker, then the desire is very strong for you to transform the lineage patterns and the pain and the suffering in your family. And you're acutely aware of what the problems are and what's not working and what needs to change. And you've committed to and dedicated your life to healing and transforming. Well, those are signs of a contract worker. And what you're missing is the ancestral piece. It amazes me that healers, astrologers, Jyotishis, Ayurvedic practitioners, body workers, therapists don't understand the ancestral piece. And I'm sorry, but everything is ancestral. So if you do not get the ancestral piece, not only can you not fully help yourself, but you aren't going to be able to help your clients either, because it didn't start with you and it didn't start in this body and this lifetime. You need to understand the impact of lineage karma on your body and the ancestral body. And that dramatically shifts the way that you work with your own trauma, your own grief work, the way that you heal yourself, your body. And if you're a healer, it radically shifts the way that you work with your clients. You cannot do healing work without understanding the ancestral component. Again, it's like having a slice of the pie rather than the whole pie. It didn't start with you, and you need to understand the origin, the root of this karma, and how, as a contract worker, it's your job to change this. And when you don't understand the contract and what your role is in changing this, then the path gets so much more painful and so much harder. What amazes me even more is that people using Jyotish, teaching Jyotish, studying Jyotish, do not understand the ancestral component. When you're working with your Jyotish chart, you're working with your ancestral body. This is a portal into your soul, and it's a portal into the ancestral body. So you have access, when you study your Jyotish chart, you have access to your karma, past, present, future. You're also looking at a map of your ancestral karma, that which makes up your wholeness, all of your parts and pieces. This karma is ancient. And again, it didn't start with you. 75% of your karma is ancestral. And so if you don't understand the 75% of the karma that makes up your wholeness, then we have a problem. You have to understand what has come before you in order to work effectively with the bag that is packed in this lifetime. And so we need to be using the Jyotish chart in this way. And remember that when you're working with your Jyotish chart, you're working with a map of your body and your ancestral body. Enter the Jyotish chart through the body. Enter the body through the Jyotish chart. When we work with Jyotish in an embodied way, and this is what I teach, we can deepen our relationship with our own body wisdom and use that to inform the path. So an embodied approach to Jyotish is absolutely vital if we're going to use this tool for transformation and healing. And of course, we can understand what's going on in the ancestral body. What is this contract that you have with your ancestors? What duty must be fulfilled in this body, in this lifetime, in order for you to really fulfill the mission and to honor the contract you have with your ancestors? So your Jyotish chart tells you all of this. Now, remember, in this time of Pitra Pakshu, this is your most important time of year to be working with your lineage and to be asking for their guidance and support. If you don't already have an ancestor altar, now is the time to create your altar, start feeding your ancestors, and I mean physically feeding them food every day. If you are a contract worker, this is non-negotiable. If you're on a Dharmic path, feeding your ancestors every day, it's part of your Dharma. And a reminder, beyond just feeding the ancestors physically food at the altar, what are you feeding your ancestors? Are you feeding them well? This is the question you should be asking on your Dharmic path. What am I feeding my lineage? How well am I feeding my ancestors, my lineage? Your Dharma is the most important way to feed your lineage and to feed them well. This means fulfilling your Dharmic duty with your ancestors, with your lineage. This means sharing your gifts and wisdom in this world and being of service in this world. Because remember, your Dharma is given to you by your ancestors. So by you sharing your gifts and wisdom, you are sharing your lineage gifts and wisdom. You're perpetuating the lineage gifts and wisdom. And what is happening and what has happened over many generations is these sacred gifts and wisdom from your lineage have been lost. That's what your job is as the contract worker, to re-enliven these gifts that have been lost in the lineage, to reawaken them, and to share them so that they perpetuate. This is the most vital way you can be feeding your ancestors and giving your gratitude, your deep soul level gratitude. Thank you. I wouldn't be here without you. My gifts and wisdom are your gifts and wisdom. These are from your ancestors. And by sharing your gifts and wisdom, you are giving the deepest thank you, the deepest reverence to your lineage. So sharing your Dharmic gifts and wisdom, it's most important. The question is, how are you feeding your ancestors? What are you feeding them? As you feed your own body, you're feeding your ancestors. As you feed your children, as you feed your loved ones, as you feed nature, as you feed your mind, your body, your soul, you're feeding the ancestors. Everything is about feeding the ancestors. Every part of your path is about the ancestors. I can't overemphasize this, and I think that it boggles my mind that this has been forgotten on the Dharmic path, and that so many people are missing this very basic yet most essential truth of Dharma. And so right now, at this sacred junction point, you can start now. You can start now and ask for your ancestors to support you And also to do your Dharmic work, part of that is trauma work, grief work, your healing work. It's not all just gratitude, rainbows, and sunshine. A big part of your Dharmic work is doing the grief work required to transform, to shapeshift, to release, to lighten the burden of your ancestral body. Most of us have immense undigested grief living in the ancestral body, and it needs to be transformed. That's your job as the contract worker. So don't neglect the hard part and the grief work that must be done. Now, I created a very simple process to help contract workers who want to strengthen their Dharma and live their embodied wholeness, have an easier, gentler, clearer path, and also transform the way that you do your Dharmic work, your Jyotish work, and the way that you heal your lineage. And the first step is to understand your early childhood birth karma, what you came in with. This sets the contract in motion. So you need to understand what you came in with. And we can do that by looking at the Jyotish chart and the dasha cycle that you came in with and really unpacking what that seed planting was for you in this body, in this lifetime. We can get a lot of information from that early childhood understanding. But remember, it didn't start with you. So even that early childhood birth karma and the birth process itself, which from a Vedic perspective, that's 25% of your karma, is actually the birth process, the 9-month gestation period, the birth process itself. And that's a big part of your karmic load is the birth process. We want to understand that from a Jyotish perspective so that we can refine what your contract is with your lineage and your ancestors. So that's step one. We have to understand this very beginning of your karma. The next step is understanding your sensitivity points. These are the places in your body that show where your special medicine lives, the gifts that need to be awakened in this body and in this life. Sensitivity points traditionally are considered challenging. They're considered problems. They're considered to be bad. I don't see it that way. And I've worked with so many highly sensitive souls, myself included, that I've come to realize the sensitivity is where your greatest gifts lie. Now, that said, your sensitivity points are also going to talk the loudest and be the most problematic if you are not in right relationship with them. So you really need to understand the sensitive points in your body in order to be in right relationship with them, but also so you can be in right relationship with your gifts and your wisdom. These are places in the ancestral body that are particularly problematic. And because they've gone unchecked and unhealed and unnoticed, and the gifts have not been honored generation after generation, now you as the contract worker really have to pay attention. These can be things like gut problems, health challenges, relationship problems, constant financial challenges, lack of understanding of who you are, what is your medicine. And so just remember that with your sensitivity points and understanding how they impact your body, you will find the greatest gifts and wisdom of you and your lineage. So we have to understand that. Now, next, we need to understand your trauma. How is trauma impacting your body and your ancestral body? We need to understand the very specific body part that is being impacted by trauma. Everybody has trauma, and everybody has one specific body part that is most challenged by the trauma in the body. And we see this through K2. We need to understand where that trauma lives in the body, because this is where you are disconnected. Wherever you are disconnected, this is exactly where you need to reconnect in order to find wholeness. And when we move closer to the challenge, we will find the resource. And this is your trauma work. So that is the Dharmic path. Your Rahu K2 axis, the attraction-repulsion dynamic, this sets you up for clarity with your Dharmic path. If you know how to work with the body, the request of your body, and what the deeper need is for your Dharmic work. So trauma work, using the Jyotish chart, and understanding how trauma is impacting your body is vital. And next, we need to clarify the ancestral contract. So once we go through these first layers, we can start to refine, why am I here? What's this contract with my lineage? What's the purpose of my lineage duty? What did they bring me here to do and to fulfill? Understanding this piece of your Dharmic work radically shifts everything, because then you can start tuning out all the distractions, all these other tools, resources, this technique, that. It doesn't matter. If you want to go find other tools and you're interested in that, fine, but you don't need it, because your Dharma and your contract with your lineage, remember, all of the tools are already, or I should say, all of the gifts are already within you. You can go find different tools to help you share your gifts and wisdom, but all of the wisdom is within you. It's embodied. And most people are just missing the confidence and the self-trust to share their gifts and wisdom in a way that, is embodied. And your medicine is already within you. So once you understand that contract and what the medicine is for your lineage, for you, for your Dharma, then the path becomes very easy, gentle, clear. And then finally, share your gifts and wisdom in this world. Once the contract is clear and you know what your gifts are and your medicine is, having the courage and the confidence to share your gifts and wisdom is the next step. And this is where the nourishment, the abundance, the fulfillment comes in, is sharing, the offering to the world. It's the next level of fulfilling the duty and the contract that you have with your ancestors. So if you're ready to get started with this and you want to do this type of work using your Vedic astrology chart in a very embodied way, deepening the wisdom of your ancestral duty and refining the contract that you have with your lineage, come work with me in my level 1 Embodied Dharma Jyotish training. This is level 1. This is the foundation. And this is where it all begins. By the end of this 9-month process, you'll know exactly what your ancestral contract is. You will be embodying the wholeness of your Dharma, and you will enliven the nourishment and prosperity, sharing your soul gifts and wisdom. It all starts with your Jyotish chart. If you know how to work with your Jyotish chart properly, in a body-centered way, in a way that helps you fulfill the duty, the purpose of this life, then come work with me. This is what we do in my level 1 Embodied Jyotish training. If you're ready to awaken a wildly fulfilling life, being in alignment with your ancestors and the wisdom of your lineage, comment ancestors below, and I will share all the details with you. We do start October 3rd. The clock is ticking. We need you to jump in now so that you can confirm your spot. We are starting with Navratri this year, and that's coming in 2 weeks. So jump in, join us in this very precious journey. 9 months of ritual, 9 months of Vedic astrology, 9 months of embodiment and ancestral work, so that you can fulfill your dharmic duty and really live a nourishing, fulfilling life of soul purpose. Jump in now, comment ancestors below for all the details, and remember, feed your ancestors well. This is the time. This only comes once a year, where the veil is so thin that we can literally touch our ancestors and connect with spirit so easily. Don't miss this opportunity to awaken your ancestral gifts and wisdom, to connect with your lineage, and to feed your ancestors well. And if you're ready for more, jump in to my level 1 Embodied Jyotish training, comment ancestors below. I can't wait to walk with you in this journey. I have never taught anything like this before, and I don't know if I'll ever teach it again, but for the next 9 months, this is what we're doing. And for those of you who really want to strengthen your dharmic path, the truth of your dharma, join us in this process. Ancestors for more details, and I'll come back next week and I'll share more about the importance of your ancestral work on the dharmic path. Bye for now.